Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 80 Days. This is Ryan Miller again. For those of you that are just joining us, we left off. We are now starting in day 10. We last left our adventurers being abducted by sky pirates. Their cart that they were in got pulled up, scavenged, and then they were dropped off in Berlin. So let's go ahead and plan since it's the middle of the night. I think we want to continue on eastward, take this northern route through Russia. Let's head back to where we are. Not much we can do right now, so we're gonna have to stay in another hotel. We stayed for the night in the Hotel Adlon on Unter den Linden, the main boulevard in the central Mitt district. From the window, the Brandenburg Gate was lit by upturned gas lamps. I went for a late night stroll. Along the avenue, past groups of people drinking at low tables. I sat down beside a pair of ladies who were each trying to outdrink the other. I joined in their game, a foolhardy move for one accustomed to the petit cognac and not the grand pichet. When I returned to Monsieur Fogg, I was in a somewhat less than steady state. Still, I had discovered that Bucharest was linked to Odessa aboard the freight train, a useful tidbit perhaps. I am now suave. Suave? Right, so what does that do for us? There must be something from Odessa to Tsaritzin. That's gonna end up being way out of our way. Let's head back. Market's open. Let's figure out when our train departs. 1 p.m. So we should have plenty of time to explore. Berlin, they tell me, was once filled with the glorious sound of people speaking French. Not so anymore. Now there is nothing but the crashing of gears. Every street corner is equipped with rotaries and wheeled systems that spin glass globes this way and that. Their purpose is quite unclear, but when I investigated one by clambering up the pole using my acrobatic training, much to my master's horror, I found it was a solid crystal sphere with no openings and nothing inside. The mystery persisted until nightfall, when these globes all lit up, and the people of Berlin clustered around the warmth of the globes to drink beer and converse. It seems they worked hard here, but they celebrate with equal vigor. We joined the merriment, earning ourselves the offer of a lift all the way to Bucharest from a stocky blond man who spoke only in dour monosyllables. I sipped at a mug of beer with a thick head and recoiled in horror. These friends put wheat in their beer. The afternoon turned to evening, and we finished our explorations of Berlin. A few hours. So Monday. That's a heck of a drive. Stop in the market. Ooh, that timetable is moving fast. Well, we better just go ahead and get out of here. Ooh, that approached pretty fast. I thought I'd have more time than that. Dang. The newly amalgamated German Reich Railways made a political point of their efficiency to quiet any nationalist rumblings. Departures left at the moment they claimed, not a second before and not a second after. Suspecting as much, I attempted to plan ahead, loading all the luggage a full hour early and ensuring Monsieur Fogg was installed the moment the guards lifted the gate. Remembering Christophe's advice, I had my ticket securely in my jacket pocket at all times, which was fortunate, as I was somewhat sleepy and managed to leave one of Monsieur's shirts behind in the hotel. Then we were away. Shaped mustache. Excellent. We arrived in good time as expected and disembarked into the windy streets of Warsaw. The evening jacket could earn us well. Let's see what we can get. Sell it for 600. What's this going to do? Accordion, Helsinki, Athens, and Minsk. So we are heading towards Minsk. Let's get that accordion. Heart of the engineer set. Heavy wrench good for the most difficult bolts and adjustments. Fur coat. Thick coat of fox fur. This should keep Mr. Fogg warm. We are heading into northern Russia, so we might as well bring something with us. Alright. Let's go ahead and stay in the hotel. Hope we can have some time to explore. We walked the streets of Warsaw, feeling the air of a different continent all around. In less than 2 generations, the Tsars had made this little outpost all their own. They have made it much nicer, too. There are building works on every road with the great digging machines sitting idle during the day and coming to life in the evening as they carve out sewage and water systems that will allow this system to grow to enormous size. A touch of empire can do wonders, I remarked to Monsieur Fogg, but his eyebrows scolded me. No good will come of this, he replied. Only malignant growths and rust expand at such a rate. He shook his head sadly. When will people realize that only the English are fit to run an empire? I agreed emphatically. What a pair of travelers we are, putting this silly world to rights. Right, that gets us all the way to Vladivostok. Going out in the day, I encountered an incredible creature, as tall as a house with wide, swinging metal arms like a rampaging giant. I stared, gaping as the terrible machine stomped from foot to foot, slowly rotating, and then I saw that in its chest was a man using levers and switches to operate the colossal device. It was a gigantic walking exoskeleton. I waved to him, and he looked down and tipped his cloth cap. How does it work? There are 2 levers for each hand, and they work on ball sockets. I'd let you try, sir, but I must get on with my work. What is this thing? I continued. It's a Kodunki, he said, from Novorossiysk. They've shipped a few in to help us with the building work. He pulled the lever, and the machine drew back a massive arm. From Novo, you say? Let's shorten that. It's a small town on the far side of the Black Sea, he replied. I don't know why they have a surplus of these things there. A drawn-back arm smashed into a wall, and the building fell into a cloud of dust. I jumped back. Excuse me, my friend called, but I must get back to work. What an incredible sight. Alright, we were already here. Let's figure out when the train to Minsk leaves. 3 p.m. Let's go ahead and head that way then. On the Belarus Express, we clambered aboard the train. Monsieur Fogg settled in a far corner like a dusty old uncle, and I pressed my nose against the glass, watching the bleak countryside roll past. Trains are such marvelous contraptions. I could have done an engine driver myself, I think, if it wasn't such a dreadfully dirty job. A life of coal scuttles and engine grease. Mon Dieu. Greetings, Monsieur Krasotkin. Good evening, man of France. I am sure you know all about Minsk. Minsk is really very cold. How informative. One can always travel this way to Moscow, I understand. You mentioned trains. I've been told Omsk is connected to Ussurisk by rail, but the fare is about 1,500 pounds. Or else. We arrived at Minsk after nightfall and disembarked. Let's go and stay here. Sell our accordion in the morning. A very cold newspaperman offered me a sip of Turkish coffee at a tram stop in Minsk. My grandfather was French, he said blandly. Then we are compatriots. I toasted him with a ceramic tumbler. I do not think so, he spat onto the ground vehemently. I did not know him. He was one of Napoleon's soldiers. Minsk was occupied by the Grand Armée during the invasion. He did not speak in a particularly accusative tone, but any words I tried to say in reply coagulated at the top of my throat. Ah, I managed to choke out. An unfortunate business. Yes, war is an unfortunate business, and yet, he sighed, I am here, so there's that. He gestured with his cup. You are traveling? We head to Moscow. We will cross Russia to Japan. He gave me a downturned smile. Vladivostok is closed, he said. You'll have more luck going through China, unless you're military. Thanks for the advice, I replied coolly. He narrowed his eyes at me. Our tram wheezed into the stop and the conductor opened the doors. The newspaper man boarded. Enjoy your coffee, he added without looking in my direction. I decided to wait for the next tram. I boarded with him and he cracked a rare smile. If I were traveling, I know where I would choose to go. And where's that? Tehran, he replied to my surprise. An unusual choice? He laughed bitterly and tapped the newspaper under his arm. When I was younger, I knew a woman called Lena Palkala, a Finnish girl. She became a dancer, and now she passes herself off as Slavic, and has just been signed up to dance exclusively in Tehran. I am sure I will never see her again, but if I could, I would try. Then go. I can advise you on routes. I would never find her. Lena Palkala is gone. Her name is now Marina Poltavka. As the train leaves. 10 p.m. So we do not have time to explore. We do have time to sell our accordion. Genuine Scottish shortbread. Safety harness. Shaving kit. Railway cap. Railwayman's cap. The sort worn by train guards and enthusiasts. How much was this? £5. I think we can survive on that. Alright. Let us embark before the train takes off. Train pulled out from Minsk Station after nightfall. Well, apparently I can't tell the difference between AM and PM. I had plenty of time to explore. Oh well, lesson learned. Monsieur Fogg had taken to tapping his watch every time we began a new journey, as though he was recording the time of departure through some fantastical spring-operated signal. Perhaps he was sending a message to whomever it was back in London, persuaded him on this curious journey of ours. There was little time to do anything before total darkness enveloped the train. Greeting, mademoiselle. Good evening. I hear you can reach Ekaterinburg from Moscow. My uncle worked in Ekaterinburg just before the Trans-Siberian Express to Omsk suffered a fire. Is it possible to travel from Ekaterinburg to Astrakhan. I believe so. My mother had a wonderful time aboard the freight train from Ekaterinburg to Astrakhan. And what about to Novo? Is it possible? Probably. But you can pick up stopwatches in Novo you can sell for profit in Moscow. Morning came and we were still crossing the Russian countryside, the train moving on its slow and steady way. I spent time talking to the other passengers, hoping to find options for our next leg. I met a charming Muscovite artist and had a pleasant if unproductive conversation, whom I quickly abandoned as knowing nothing. Finally, we pulled into the stone edifice that was Moscow Station and disembarked. Yes, let's explore before it gets too late. Moscow was not a comfortable city for a Frenchman. The local composer had just written a piece people were calling the 1812 Overture, commemorating the Russian victory over Napoleon's invading Grande Armée in that fateful year. Patriotic passions were at a fever pitch, so I stayed very sensibly. Indoors, nah, let's wander. Exploring the city, though I resolved to remain mute and unobjectionable should I encounter anyone. I traversed the city on foot, keeping out of sight of the patrols of uniformed policemen and Cossack troops mounted on black mechanical steeds. I ventured away from the wide boulevards and the eclectic architecture of Tverskaya Street towards the Kremlin. Spasskaya Tower, topped by the two-headed imperial eagle, loomed over the square, but my eye was drawn to a woman handing out pamphlets by a public water fountain. She was carefully avoiding the Cossack patrols and keeping away from the more finely dressed ladies and gentlemen in the square. I took a pamphlet from her, intending to question her of its contents, but she hurried away with some alacrity. The pamphlet itself was printed on very cheap paper and had a crude picture of a rather morose-looking farmer drawn in the middle of the acrylic text. As the bells of the nearby church chimed the hour, I returned to my master, content with my brief view of the Tsar's capital city. Alright, let's see where we're heading. So that is closed. If that's the case, we may need to head south through China, because we are not military, unless we can make it to Pyongyang, which sounds quite dangerous. Go visit Kim Jong. Decisions. Let's still try for Pyongyang. I'd like to stay in the northern side. It seemed to be shorter if we could just stay up that north. Let's head back and get our hotel room. As night fell, I polished our shoes, helped the kitchen staff to clean, earning 48 pounds. Wonderful. Let's see what time this train leaves. Trans-Siberian departs in 2 days. Let's see. Fur coat from a Russian gentleman's wardrobe should spur them on. Looks like we can grease the wheels for $8.10. ticket will require a further 1,600. I think we need to get out as soon as we can. Remember that leaves here pretty soon. Let's check the market. False passport. Top hat. Part of the traveler set. Gentleman's traveler set. Air traveler. So now that we're out of Europe, I don't think that there is a need for that. Might not hurt to have a fake passport. Okay. Oh, did I just dig? Oh no. Well, I'm dumb. That clock goes so fast. Before retiring, let's explore this time. And succeeded only in having my pocket picked for 17 pounds. Fabulous. To hell with me. Why am I doing this? 980 pounds. 98 pounds. Okay, it's morning. Let's get out of here. On the Trans-Siberian Express. Hopefully they're playing Trans-Siberian Orchestra music. The bell in the stuccoed and whitewashed Moscow station gave its third and final clang, and the platform erupted into frenzy. We boarded calmly and found ourselves in a small cabin with heated water and even a shaving mirror. The Times. Paris World Fair, a roaring success. We were away. I familiarized myself with the train. The last two carriages were heavily guarded prison cars, then fourth class, then third, and so on, with amenities scattered between passenger cars. The smoking room was beside the dining car, plushly decked in Moorish fashion with low seats. I sat myself down and shared a cigar with a Russian businessman who told me that some buyers will pay well for pocket altimeters from Hong Kong. It is good to see that, wherever one goes, the conversations one has are much the same. My bed that night swayed along with the motion of the train. From Moscow to Karimskaya was a journey of over 5,000 miles, and we had only just begun. Alright, keep going. Our fellow passengers were a mix of convicts, political radicals, prospectors, businessmen, and military officers. In the midst of this was a young lady, Rosa, modestly dressed in a rich military-style jacket and fur toque. I made her acquaintance. Only too easily. She was desperate for a sympathetic ear and told me her great secret. She had fallen in love with a peasant boy in fourth class called Jack, by which I understood that they had shared a glance of extreme passion in the baggage car. Ah, to be young again. I promised her I'd give her any aid I could. What else could I do? Surely it would provide some entertainment on our long voyage. We crossed the Volga in the early afternoon, crawling slowly over a bridge perched on high stone pillars. The devout Russians stood and crossed themselves while looking out over the water. I could just hear the lilting, rhythmic, oar-beating sounds of the Volga boatmen over the whistle of steamboats. We across the Urals today. At the risk of sounding like a jaded traveler, I must admit that they are hardly magnificent. A heaving up of earth and forested hills for 100 miles. We stopped for an hour at Ekaterinburg, where I spotted the young lady slipping off to fourth class. Her worried mamma followed soon after, demanding whether anyone had seen her daughter Rosa. I made an excuse for her, gesturing discreetly in the direction of the lavatories. They were mixed-sex conveniences, and a cause of much inconvenience, truth be told. Her mamma was convinced, and settled down to her luncheon with gusto. Rosa returned a half-hour hence, cheeks flushed but otherwise unharmed. She cast me a grateful glance. I could only hope her little amour would not blossom into outright scandal. Famous dancer seen in Novo, heading for Tehran. I need to attend Fogg, because he's getting a little frazzled. Time on board trains takes a meditative quality. I visited the library car and met Golan, the daughter of a Mongol chieftain, who was poring over a thick volume of algebra. I confess myself surprised by her choice of reading, but she shrugged. I must study algebra if I am to be an engineer in the Imperial Army of Russia. I wish to leave behind my ancestors' warrior past. It is a new world, I observed. We may remake ourselves as we like. She laughed delightedly. Just so. She folded the book closed. You have traveled, monsieur. They call us barbarians, don't they? She asked. Who are they and what do they matter? I demanded with fine rhetoric and spirit. Your life is yours. She leaned forward, eyes shining. The truth is, there is more going on in my country than most outsiders know. We are growing fast as a people. What do you mean? I asked, intrigued. This is the age of progress, she replied, tapping her books, of systems and of thermodynamics. In my people, we have discovered some very interesting things. I was intrigued and leant forward to hear more, but the girl shook her head. I won't tell you, she said and laughed. I will show you. Tomorrow night, on the deck. I will be there, I nodded. We conversed until supper, and she presented me with her family's solde, a Mongolian horsetail banner. I do not have any need of my past where I am going, she said. You have it. Do with it what you will. Today we decanted or sell a full score of British, Dutch, and German merchants, and took on more military officers. We cleared an entire first-class carriage for the use of a mysterious couple. I caught a brief glimpse of the woman behind the bristle of bayonets. I was fairly overset with curiosity, but it would be several days before I encountered the couple again. The hour grew late, and my meeting with Golan the mathematician approached. Monsieur Fogg watched me bustling about our cabin with suspicion. You look as though you are planning an escape, he remarked. I am meeting someone. Monsieur Fogg's eyebrow twitched in that manner of his, but he said nothing, returning to his newspaper. I breathed a sigh of relief and hurried from the cabin to meet Golan on the viewing platform of the train. You came, she said. I am glad. As am I. She looked at my eyes for a moment, then smiled quickly. Taking my hand, she walked along the edge of the rail, the wind tugging her hair into a wild dance. The train's lamp was a single candle in an endless night. Lifting my hand past her cheek, she pointed my finger into the desert. There. I saw nothing except evening stars. I shook my head and Golan laughed. There, she exclaimed. How many stars do you know that move? She was right. One gleaming dot on the dark horizon was lifting upwards. Golan squeezed my hand. That star is the Garuda launching, she replied. It flies at night to keep it a secret, but now you know it. What is the Garuda? I asked. The world has been made small by airships, Golan replied. They pull everyone closer together, but our Garuda is faster still. It will turn this world into a single teeming city, and Urga will be at this new world's heart. It sounds most formidable, I told her. Now you see why I am studying, she replied. Everything about this new world will be different, and I will help shape it. I do not doubt it. Flatterer, her dark eyes flashed with hot anger. A moment later, she stood on her tiptoes and leaned forward. Out there on the deck of that remarkable train, with the endless Russian night bitterly cold, the lady of the steppes kissed me. How romantic. I wonder how we even use this. Oh my word. Rosa absconded once again, and her mother caused quite a ruckus in the breakfast car. Apparently, the girl is fiancée to a rich, rather stiff-looking German merchant who boarded at Omsk. I predicted this comedy of errors will come to no happy end. As the sun set over Tega, Monsieur Fogg expressed a mild boredom with the monotonous view from the carriage windows. My own feelings were quite different as I stared across that wild view, a view I liked so much that once night had fallen, I could not sleep, and was forced to take a turn around the viewing platform for the second night in a row. There must be something to do with these other than to just sell them. We reached the magnificent Angara Valley that holds the mining camp of Irkutsk. We looked through the window, and there was nothing here, barely a building of any kind. I began to doubt our plan, but Monsieur Fogg insisted that a ticket was a ticket. As the train pulled away, I wondered if we had made a terrible mistake. I saw Golan disembarking with her suitcase of books and struggling under the weight. I rushed to her aid, but she brushed my help aside. "Generous sir," she murmured, "but I cannot be seen to be helped by a Frenchman." I stood back stung, and watched as she met a man on the platform, an uncle perhaps, who scooped her up with great familiarity and led her away to a horse, parked neatly in the yard beyond. Then she was gone. Wow. That sucks. Explore we will. Good. Good. Irkutsk was a surprisingly beautiful town and packed with so many churches that one could not look up at any street corner without seeing a dome or steeple. We explored, entering the city across a bridge made of tethered boats. My acrobatic skills made the crossing easy, but Monsieur Fogg found it a most unpleasant business, and once across, refused to return to the other bank. On a street corner across the water, we saw a group of soldiers stop and turn to face the sun, praying bareheaded. There is a steady calm about this place. The people are both devout and poor despite the gold that flows through the city every day on its way to St. Petersburg. The barges of precious metals are fast, but no good to us, as they are heading the wrong way. I kept looking for Goland as we walked around the wooden pavements, but I did not see her. I supposed that she had been whisked away by a horse caravan into the deserts to the south. Perhaps the sight of the mysterious Garuda would persuade Monsieur Fogg to follow. All right. Let's check this. Horse-drawn, that leaves tomorrow at 8. Dang, that's gonna hurt. I think that's our only option though. Nighttime. From nearby we heard the ferries moving back and forth Lake Baikal, and nearby the mining machines cranked on through the night. The local people do not go out at night, I noticed. I could not tell if it was due to devotion or hard work, or if some terror roamed the streets. Whichever, I went out to explore, but found nothing for my wanderings but an old beggar who had insisted on reading my palms. I allowed him, and he screwed up his eyes before foreseeing a great loss in Hong Kong. told him I was not going to Hong Kong, and he nodded. Someone is, he replied eagerly, before then creeping away. Alright. Let's negotiate. Alright, let's get out of here. Boarded the steam train, and it was not a passenger service, but was carrying huge quantities of iron ore very slowly indeed. Still, we made ourselves as comfortable as we could. At least we were leaving Russia behind. Greetings, guard. You two stowaways are comfortable, I trust? I'm sure you know all about Beijing. I hear there are no airships allowed in Beijing. So we want Pyongyang. No idea, but I do know you can pick up magnifying glasses in Pyongyang. You can sell for profit in Singapore. This doesn't help much. The Chinese and Japanese vie for influence over Korea. Goodbye. I need to pay attention more where we need to head. We need to find out if there's a way from Pyongyang to Yokohama, or if we are going to have to go to Hong Kong, which I hope not. It felt as though we were the only passengers aboard. Perhaps we were, though I would not have been surprised if the guard had not taken money from a few others and stowed them in the adjoining cars. Ooh, getting damaged. Passepartout, your care is highly calming. The train swept on through endless countryside, getting faster hour by hour as it burnt through some of the stocks of coal it carried. We passed our time in comfortable silence, relaxing as best we could and recovering from our various exertions. The evening drew in and the train thundered on, seemingly without thought of pause. On into Urga. In the evening of the third day, we approached the city of Urga. We had been told nothing about stopping here and had tickets to Beijing. But there seemed no reason to change our plans. An hour went by, perhaps we refueled, and then we were off once more, rattling away through the bleak, empty steppes. Let's keep you healthy. Fresh shirt. Superb. A quiet day that passed without incident. The train guard came and went, bringing food. A thin soup in which noodles floating like dying worms. I enjoyed it. I think Monsieur Fogg considered it vile, but he ate all the same. Both of us cannot wait to be in the city. Alright, one final one. My man, your attention is very relaxing. As we approached Beijing, Monsieur Fogg became increasingly animated, ready for the next step of our journey. Hopefully we've got enough time to explore. Yes, indeed. There were no airships sailing through the Beijing sky, nor any evidence of electrification. Though they did not shun all technology, palanquins were drawn by intricately worked and gilded iron lions as often as human servants, and I saw animated metal and jade dragons perched on the gables of imperial buildings, breathing curls of steam vapor and flapping their enamel-feathered wings. Furthermore, I was lucky enough to catch a little of the people as well. On the walk across the city, we passed a pair of opium addicts, were slumped in an alley, faces blankly blissful despite the emaciation of their limbs. I turned my face away, but could not burn the damning sight from my mind. It infected all my memories of the splendid Beijing. Alright, we need this. And then let's get rid of this passport. This may come in handy. Let's get rid of that. And let's get that. I don't think we'll need that pamphlet. Probably though. Fabulous, huh? Yokohama. Let's hope we can make it there. Get it. Get it. Alright. Some way to Yokohama or even Pyongyang. There's no way. I think we're gonna have to go all the way to Hong Kong because they said this is closed. We can get there. Arrives next Sunday. This is a day 34, and I'd say we're probably halfway. Yeah. Alright. Let's head back. Get in our hotel. With the last light of the evening, I went out to explore a little and very much enjoyed my distance from my master. When I returned, both my spirits and I fancy his were much improved. Alright, let's get out of here. Get out to Yokohama. So, Hong Kong. Hopefully nothing bad happens. We boarded the Beijing Express for the next leg of the journey through China to Hong Kong. Greetings, Monsieur Lagarde. Good day, Monsieur. Hong Kong to Yokohama. Monsieur, really? But you can buy amethysts in Yokohama. You can sell for profit in Hong Kong. See, that's always backwards, it sounds. You can buy the stuff, but then the place you've already visited is where you can sell it for profit. So I don't see how that helps me at all. Singapore. I am sure I have no idea, but merchants in Hong Kong will pay extremely well for candles scented of rose from Singapore. About Honolulu. I'm afraid I have to go. Touchy subject, huh? From Beijing to Hong Kong was another 1,000 miles, but the train line took a clever route that avoided most of the large towns entirely, running without stopping by the shortest route possible. I passed the time eavesdropping, hoping to gather information for our next leg, and I discovered from a cheerful Siamese woman that a notorious jewel thief plied the waters between Singapore and Batavia in a boat called the Spicy Jake. Evening turned to night, and the train did not stop or slow. The countryside fell away to be replaced by busy, bustling working towns. Large industrial plants belched steam into the air, and mechanical contraptions stalked between warehouses. I watched with fascination as the countryside turned to the beginnings of an urban sprawl. This would be a city of dirt and filth, and yes, excitement. Hong Kong. Some speed. I was looking over a bolt of bright red Chinese silk when a man accosted me. This man had a mustache so fine, so luxuriant, so well tended, that I briefly lost the power of speech. I watched, mesmerized as it quivered with his every word of introduction. It seemed his name was Fix. He offered me a drink, and given that I had a few hours to spare, I could not in good conscience refuse. It sounds like I'm a bit of a drunk. He led me into a dingy basement where a sour-faced Chinese woman presided over several tables and a few couches with men and women, mostly Europeans in various states of lulling intoxication. "You frequent this place?" I asked, attempting to reconfigure my image of Monsieur Fix. "The gin is good," he told me, and ordered us a bottle to prove his claim. It was thin and sharp, but not wholly distasteful. We chatted amiably for a time, though I noted he kept my glass full, and not his own. "Listen," he said abruptly, "I am a police detective sent from the London office." "You? A detective?" I could not hide my incredulity, but he presented me with his commission, which seemed in all respects genuine and correct. "You have been duped," he resumed. "Mr. Fogg's wager is a pretext. Last September, a robbery of £55,000 was committed at the Bank of England by a person whose description answers exactly to that of Mr. Phileas Fogg." What? £55,000, you say?" I slurred, feeling the effects of the bottle of gin. "That surely cannot be." "You know scarcely anything of your master," Fix ground on. "You went into his service the day he departed on this so-called wager, carrying a little but a large quantity of banknotes." "He is an honest man," I asserted mechanically, though in the face of Fix's absolute certainty I found myself assailed with prickles of doubt. The detective hissed a breath which fluttered the tips of his oiled mustache. "I could arrest you as his accomplice." "I have done nothing wrong," I protested. "Then you must help me find him." "You must help me," he replied. Fix pressed a pipe into my hand, and I unthinkingly lifted it to my mouth before dashing it away in horror. "This is an opium pipe," I accused, standing up so abruptly that my chair tipped over. "How dare you, sir?" Fix chuckled hollowly. "I dare because I must at all costs separate you and your master, as you call him. Then you will regret it." Having delivered my dramatic promise, I stalked out of the opium den without a backward glance. The fresh air cleared my senses a little, and I returned with shaky steps to Monsieur Fogg. Despite the gin sloshing its way through my body, I felt as sober as a judge and twice as grim. Let's check the market. Need some boots, always. Dominoes. 0 as well. I don't think we're going to need the fur coat anymore, so let's use that to buy the rifle. Need that from Yokohama. Sell for $220. Don't think we're going to need that. Alright. Let's get out of the market. Alright, well guys, I'm going to have to end this episode here today. If you like the episode, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to continue on with this and hopefully make it through this game here in another episode or two. We'll see. We are only on day 29 of what you can imagine to be probably close to 80 days, hence the name. But again, hope you guys are enjoying this channel, enjoying the videos. I'm enjoying this story so far, the whole gameplay, being able to choose your own adventure in a sense, both between the dialogue and then the paths that you can take. I'm not the best strategist, as you can tell, since I've probably lost a number of days from stupid errors, clicking too early mainly, but hopefully we can still make it there in 80 days. Anyway, you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.